You know what absolutely grinds my gears? The wrestling world is on fire right now, and half of you probably scrolled past the biggest bombshell in WWE history without even batting an eye. While you were busy arguing about who's the better wrestler on Twitter, the entire foundation of WWE just got demolished. And I'm not talking about some mid-card title change or another predictable storyline. I'm talking about the kind of seismic shift that makes the Montreal Screwjob look like a friendly handshake. Triple H fired? Austin Theory suddenly cozying up to Seth Rollins like they are long-lost brothers? Drew McIntyre finally dethroning Cody Rhodes? If you think this is just another week in wrestling, you're not just wrong, you're dangerously uninformed about what's really happening behind the curtain. And here's the part that's going to make your blood boil. WWE has been playing us all like fiddles, and the evidence has been hiding in plain sight for months. Stick around because what I'm about to reveal will make you question everything you thought you knew about WWE's current direction. And I guarantee, by the end of this video, you'll be scrambling to hit that share button faster than Roman Reigns can say, "Acknowledge me." Let's get into it. Let's address the elephant in the room that's got the entire wrestling community in an absolute frenzy. The rumors about Triple H being fired aren't just baseless internet gossip cooked up by some basement-dwelling fantasy booker. Multiple sources, and I mean credible sources within WWE's corporate structure, have been dropping hints that the game's position as chief content officer is on shakier ground than we ever imagined. Now, before you rush to the comments screaming fake news or clickbait, hear me out. This isn't about whether Triple H literally got escorted out of the building with his belongings in a cardboard box. This is about something far more insidious and complex that's been brewing since WrestleMania 40. Here's what we know. Triple H revolutionized WWE programming when he took over creative control. NXT became the gold standard of professional wrestling. Main roster shows became must-see television again. Long-term storytelling returned. Wrestlers were actually being treated like the athletes they are instead of cartoon characters. The man literally saved WWE from becoming a parody of itself. But here's where it gets interesting and infuriating. Despite record-breaking attendance, despite the critical acclaim, despite bringing back the very essence of what made WWE great in the first place, there's been a growing power struggle behind the scenes that would make Game of Thrones look like a children's tea party. And the players involved? Names so big they could headline WrestleMania with a stare-down alone. The Netflix deal changed everything. When WWE signed that historic agreement to bring Monday Night Raw to Netflix starting in 2025, it wasn't just about streaming rights and dollar signs. It brought new executives into the fold, executives who don't have the decades of wrestling knowledge that Triple H possesses. They see spreadsheets where Hunter sees storytelling. They see demographics where he sees dynasties being built. Reports suggest that certain creative decisions Triple H made have been quietly overturned. Wrestlers who were promised pushes suddenly found themselves in catering. Storylines that were meticulously planned months in advance got scrapped overnight. And the most damning evidence? The sudden surge of entertainment first, wrestling second segments that started creeping back into programming like a disease we thought were cured. Quick engagement question. Drop a comment right now. Do you trust Triple H's creative vision? Or do you think WWE needs fresh perspectives from non-wrestling executives? I want to see this comment section go off. Triple H isn't just a corporate suit who stumbled into the position. This is a man who bled for this business. He's a 14-time world champion, a main eventer at multiple WrestleManias, the architect behind NXT's golden era, and someone who genuinely understands wrestling psychology better than most people understand their own names. To push him out, or even to minimize his influence, isn't just disrespectful, it's corporate sabotage of the highest order. The timing is suspicious too. Right when WWE is hitting creative peaks not seen since the Attitude Era, suddenly there are concerns about the direction. Right when wrestlers are publicly praising the work environment and creative freedom, suddenly there needs to be restructuring. Come on, even a blind person could see what's really happening here. And let's talk about what a WWE without Triple H's creative control would look like. We'd be right back to the days of nonsensical booking, stop-start pushes, talented wrestlers being wasted, and storylines that insult our intelligence. Remember the cooking angles? Remember the ridiculous celebrity tie-ins that went nowhere? Remember when WWE couldn't book a coherent storyline if their stock price depended on it? That's the world we're staring down if the game gets sidelined. The wrestling community is divided on this, and honestly, that division itself is telling. Some fans who never appreciated Triple H's in-ring career or his DX days are celebrating potential change. Others who've watched NXT grow from a small developmental brand into the most critically acclaimed wrestling show on the planet are ready to riot. But here's what both sides need to understand: removing Triple H from creative isn't about him personally, it's about corporate entities valuing quarterly earnings over long-term legacy building. Now, let's pivot to something that came completely out of left field and has the potential to reshape the entire landscape of Monday Night Raw: Austin Theory and Seth Rollins forming an alliance. And no, this isn't one of those thrown-together tag teams that WWE forgets about in 3 weeks. This is strategic, deliberate, and if you're paying attention, absolutely brilliant. Austin Theory has been on the most bizarre roller coaster ride in recent WWE history. This is a guy who was positioned as Vince McMahon's golden boy, won the United States Championship, won Money in the Bank, and was clearly being groomed for superstardom. Then Vince retired, and suddenly Theory went from future main eventer to punchline faster than you can say selfie stick. The character became a joke, the booking became inconsistent. Fans who were ready to boo him as a top heel instead just stopped caring entirely. That's the kiss of death in professional wrestling, not hatred, but apathy. You can work with boos. You can channel hatred into heat. But when fans simply don't care whether you're on their screen or not, that's when careers die before they even begin. Theory was dangerously close to becoming another what-if story, another talent with unlimited potential who got lost in the shuffle of creative direction changes. Enter Seth Rollins, the visionary, the revolutionary, a man who's reinvented himself more times than Madonna and somehow gotten better with each iteration. Seth has been on a journey of his own, recovering from injury, dealing with the psychological warfare that comes with being a top star, and searching for meaning beyond championship reigns. He's at that stage in his career where he's not just wrestling for titles, he's wrestling for legacy. So why would Seth Rollins, established main eventer and locker room leader, suddenly take Austin Theory under his wing? On the surface, it makes zero sense. Seth doesn't need a protege. Theory doesn't scream Rollins' disciple. They have completely different styles, different personas, different everything. But that's exactly what makes this genius. Seth sees in Theory what WWE management clearly stopped seeing: raw potential. Theory is athletic, charismatic when given proper material, and young enough that he has decades ahead of him if guided correctly. Seth isn't looking for a clone, he's looking for an investment. By aligning with Theory, Seth positions himself as a kingmaker, someone who elevates talent rather than buries it. It's a career move that transcends wins and losses. But here's the darker undercurrent that nobody's talking about. What if this alliance is actually a hostile takeover in disguise? What if Seth, knowing the political landscape of WWE, decided that having a younger, hungrier ally gives him leverage in an increasingly unstable environment? What if Theory, desperate to salvage his career, is willing to do whatever it takes to get back into the spotlight, even if it means becoming Seth's weapon? Viewer engagement question. Let me know in the comments: is Seth Rollins genuinely helping Austin Theory, or is he using him as a pawn in a bigger game? And more importantly, who benefits more from this partnership? The dynamic between them is already fascinating. Seth is the talker, the psychologist, the mind games master. Theory is the muscle, the athleticism, the explosive offense. Together, they are covering each other's weaknesses while amplifying their strengths. It's wrestling strategy 101, but executed at a level we haven't seen in years. And let's address the elephant in the room: what does this mean for their opponents? Because if this alliance is real, if it's being given the proper time and attention to develop, then every tag team and every singles competitor on Raw just got put on notice. Seth Rollins alone is a threat to anyone. Austin Theory, with proper guidance, could become the star WWE always wanted him to be. Together, they could run roughshod over the entire brand. But there's another layer to this that's either incredibly smart booking or incredibly desperate booking, depending on your perspective. WWE has struggled to create new stars organically. They've tried monster pushes, they've tried authority figure backing, they've tried everything except the one thing that actually works: long-term storytelling with character development. By having Seth mentor Theory, they are essentially using Seth's established credibility to transfer legitimacy to Theory. It's wrestling alchemy, turning potential into gold by association. The question becomes, is this sustainable? History tells us that mentor-student relationships in WWE have about a 50-50 success rate. For every successful pairing like Evolution, we have a dozen forgotten alliances that went nowhere. The difference this time might be the wrestlers themselves. Seth is experienced enough to navigate politics and creative pitfalls. Theory is young enough to be mold but old enough to have learned from his previous failed push. What happens when they inevitably turn on each other? Because let's be real, this is wrestling. The student eventually challenges the master. It's the circle of life in our sport. When that moment comes, will Austin Theory be ready to step into that spotlight as a legitimate main event player? Or will he crumble under the pressure like so many before him? And even more intriguing, will Seth Rollins be the one to elevate him through that feud? Or will WWE revert to form and have Seth destroy Theory's momentum for a cheap victory? The potential is enormous. The risk is equally enormous. And the fact that we're all talking about Austin Theory again, debating his value, discussing his future, that alone proves this angle is already succeeding where his previous booking failed. And now we arrive at the storyline that has the potential to either save WWE's main event scene or completely derail the momentum they've spent 2 years building. Drew McIntyre potentially dethroning Cody Rhodes as undisputed WWE champion. And before the Cody Rhodes defense squad comes for me in the comments, hear me out on why this might actually be the right move at the right time, or the worst decision since WCW put the title on David Arquette. Let's establish some context here. Cody Rhodes' journey back to WWE and his subsequent championship victory at WrestleMania 40 was the culmination of one of the greatest long-term stories in modern wrestling history. The man left WWE, bet on himself, became the biggest star in the independent scene, built AEW into a legitimate competitor, then returned to WWE to finish his story by winning the title his father never could. It was perfect. It was emotional. It was everything wrestling should be. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to acknowledge: Cody's title reign has been good. Not great, not legendary, just good. And in the unforgiving world of professional wrestling, just good from your top champion can be more damaging than a bad reign, because at least bad generates conversation and heat. Good generates polite applause and then people move on with their lives. Cody's defenses have been solid. His matches have been quality. His promos have been passionate. But where's the must-see factor? Where's the compelling drama that makes casual fans tune in every week? Where's the storyline that has people on the edge of their seats, desperate to see what happens next? It's been absent, and that absence is creating a vacuum that WWE needs to fill before the audience notices and starts changing the channel. Enter Drew McIntyre, the Scottish warrior, the chosen one who became the rejected one who became the self-made champion who became overlooked. Again, Drew's story is one of the most frustrating in WWE because he's done everything right. He got himself in peak physical condition. He improved his promo skills dramatically. He won the WWE Championship during the pandemic. He's been a reliable main eventer for years. And yet, he's somehow still not treated as the guy. Drew has every reason to be angry, every reason to be bitter, every reason to look at Cody Rhodes and think, what does he have that I don't? Cody left WWE and came back to glory. Drew stayed, suffered through the 3 megabytes comedy act, got released, rebuilt himself, came back, and has been stuck in the perpetual upper mid-card main event purgatory ever since. That's not just storytelling, that's real. Critical viewer question. I want your honest take in the comments. Has Cody Rhodes' championship reign lived up to the hype, or has it been underwhelming? Don't hold back, I can handle the heat, and so can this comment section. The psychology of a Drew McIntyre championship run right now is fascinating. You have a legitimate baddie who's paid his dues, who's proven himself repeatedly, who's been passed over 4 flashier returnees and legacy acts, finally saying enough and taking what should have been his years ago. That's a story that resonates because it's happened to all of us. We've all been overlooked despite doing everything right. We've all watched someone else get opportunities we deserved. Drew McIntyre represents that frustration in physical form. But let's talk about the risks here, because they are substantial. Cody Rhodes is over with the audience. His merchandise sells. His segments draw. He's one of WWE's most marketable stars. Taking the title off him after less than a year could damage his long-term value and make the entire finish the story journey feel pointless in retrospect. It's the kind of decision that looks smart in the short term but could have devastating long-term consequences. However, and this is a big however, keeping the title on Cody just because he's popular is exactly the kind of safe, predictable booking that makes wrestling stale. Sometimes the right move is the uncomfortable move. Sometimes you have to take the title off the beloved babyface to create the drama and stakes that make wrestling compelling. Because here's a secret that modern wrestling has forgotten: championships matter more when they change hands. The Attitude Era worked because titles changed hands regularly and unpredictably. Fans genuinely didn't know who would be champion from month to month. That unpredictability created investment. Now, we can predict championship reigns months in advance, which removes the tension and excitement that makes wrestling appointment viewing. A Drew McIntyre title win would signal that WWE is willing to take risks again, willing to swerve expectations, willing to prioritize storytelling over safe booking. Let's examine what a Drew McIntyre championship reign would look like. First, you have an immediately credible champion who doesn't need to be built up, he's already established. Second, you create multiple instant feuds, Cody's redemption arc, continuing issues with Centimeter Punk, potential clashes with Seth Rollins, the Austin Theory / Seth alliance we just discussed. Third, you have a fighting champion with a chip on his shoulder, cutting promos about being overlooked, about proving everyone wrong, about finally getting what he deserves. That's compelling television. The match itself would be brutal. Drew and Cody have chemistry, and more importantly, they both understand the importance of big match storytelling. This wouldn't be a spot fest. This wouldn't be a choreographed gymnastics routine. This would be two men who believe they deserve to be champion beating the absolute hell out of each other to prove it. The near falls would mean something. The kickouts would draw genuine gasps. The finish would feel earned rather than predetermined. But timing is everything. If this happens too soon, it feels reactionary, like WWE is panic switching the title because they don't have faith in Cody's reign. If it happens too late, Drew's momentum could evaporate, and the moment passes. The sweet spot is right now. Cody has had enough time with the title to establish his reign as legitimate. Drew has built enough frustration to justify taking it by force, and the WWE universe is ready for something unexpected. There's also the faction warfare element. Cody has his allies, the Bloodline saga connected him to multiple wrestlers. Drew has been a lone wolf, which actually makes his potential title win more impactful. Imagine Drew standing alone in the ring, title held high, having conquered the odds without backup, without help, through pure determination and brutality. That's an image that creates a star. Let's address the elephant in the room. What about Roman Reigns? What about The Rock? What about the Bloodline storyline that's been WWE's backbone? Here's where it gets interesting. A Drew McIntyre championship run doesn't eliminate any of those stories. In fact, it enhances them. Roman can challenge Drew without the baggage of facing Cody again. Rock can return to feud with Drew over the title, creating a fresh dynamic. The Bloodline can target Drew as an outsider who took what they believe is rightfully theirs. Drew as champion also solves a major problem WWE has been dancing around. How do you keep the main event scene fresh when you've done most of the obvious matchups? Cody versus Roman, done. Cody versus the Bloodline, done. Cody versus legacy opponents, mostly done. Drew opens up entirely new possibilities because he hasn't been in those exact same feuds to death. Drew versus Roman would feel fresh. Drew versus Rock would be massive. Drew versus any of the rising stars would be compelling. Engagement moment. Comment below with your prediction. Will Drew McIntyre actually dethrone Cody Rhodes, or is this just internet speculation that goes nowhere? And if it happens, is it the right call or a massive mistake? The character work potential is endless. Drew as a fighting champion with a persecution complex, believing everyone wants to see him fail, becoming more paranoid and aggressive with each successful defense. Drew as a warrior king, conquering all challenges through pure fighting spirit. Drew as a tweener champion, respected but feared, admired but unpredictable. The character can go multiple directions depending on how they want to book him. And let's be brutally honest about something, Cody Rhodes doesn't need the championship to be relevant. He's one of those rare wrestlers who's bigger than any title. His father's legacy, his own journey, his connection to the audience, those transcend championships. Taking the title off him doesn't diminish him. In fact, a compelling chase to reclaim the championship might actually make him more interesting than he is as champion. The chase is always better than the catch in wrestling. It's why Daniel Bryan's road to WrestleMania 30 was more compelling than his actual title reign. It's why Kofi Kingston's championship pursuit was better than his reign. It's why Austin's battles with McMahon were more entertaining than when he actually held the title. The struggle, the pursuit, the journey, that's what creates investment. Cody chasing Drew to reclaim his championship would be money. The promos alone would be worth the price of admission. Cody questioning whether he finished his story only to lose it immediately. Drew mocking him for not being able to hold on to what he fought so hard to win. The back and forth, the mind games, the physical battles. That's a WrestleMania main event right there, and it's a fresh one because Cody would be in the chase position rather than the comfortable champion position. But here's what WWE absolutely cannot do. They cannot make this decision half-heartedly. If Drew wins the title, he needs to be treated like the champion, not a transitional champion keeping it warm for the next big thing. He needs meaningful feuds, he needs time to establish himself, he needs the creative support to make this reign matter. Because if they put the title on Drew just to take it off him in a month, they've damaged both Drew and Cody for no reason. The wrestling business is about creating moments that people remember forever. Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant, Austin stunning McMahon, The Rock and Hogan staring down at WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan's Yes movement, Kofi's championship win, Cody finishing his story. These moments transcend wins and losses, they become part of wrestling mythology. Drew McIntyre dethroning Cody Rhodes has the potential to be one of those moments if it's done right, with the proper build, the proper match quality, and the proper follow-up. The alternative is maintaining the status quo. Cody keeps the title, has good matches, cuts solid promos, and everyone nods approvingly while secretly wishing something more exciting was happening. That's the safe choice. That's the boring choice. That's the choice that keeps WWE exactly where it is rather than pushing it to where it could be. The bigger picture, 25:00-32:00. Now let's zoom out and connect these three massive stories into the bigger picture of where WWE is heading, because nothing happens in isolation in professional wrestling. Everything is connected, and the connections between Triple H's creative future, the Theory Rollins alliance, and a potential Drew McIntyre championship reign paint a picture of a company at a crossroads. If Triple H is truly being pushed out of creative control, or if his influence is being diminished, then these storylines we're discussing might be the last gasps of his vision for WWE. The long-term character development, the logical progressions, the willingness to take risks on talent that traditional WWE would overlook, these are Hunter's fingerprints all over current programming. Losing that would fundamentally change WWE's identity moving forward. The Netflix deal looms over everything like a storm cloud. When Raw moves to Netflix in 2025, WWE enters a completely new era of wrestling presentation. They'll be competing for attention not just against other wrestling companies, but against every show on one of the world's largest streaming platforms. The pressure to deliver must-see content will be astronomical. Cookie-cutter, safe booking won't cut it in that environment. This is where the Drew McIntyre storyline connects to everything else. WWE needs to establish that anything can happen, that championships can change hands unexpectedly, that your favorite wrestler isn't safe just because they are popular. They need to recreate the feeling that made the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era so compelling, genuine unpredictability mixed with logical storytelling. The Austin Theory and Seth Rollins alliance represents WWE's attempt to build the next generation while that transition happens. Seth is at the perfect stage of his career to be the bridge between eras. He's young enough to still go at a high level, but experienced enough to guide younger talent. Theory represents the future if WWE doesn't screw it up this time. Their partnership is essentially WWE's insurance policy against an uncertain future. Quick comment prompt. Let me know what you think. Is WWE heading in the right direction with these storylines, or are they about to make the same mistakes they've made for decades? The comment section is open for debate. But here's what terrifies me about all of this. WWE has a documented history of starting promising storylines and then abandoning them when they lose interest or when a new shiny object catches their attention. How many times have we seen careers derailed by sudden creative changes? How many times have we watched compelling stories get dropped without resolution? How many times have we felt like our investment in characters and storylines was wasted because WWE got bored and moved on? The Triple H situation is the canary in the coal mine. If the man who created the most consistently good wrestling content in WWE over the past few years can be pushed aside or fired, then no storyline is safe. The Theory Rollins alliance could be forgotten in a month. Drew's potential title win could be reversed immediately. Everything we're discussing could become irrelevant if the wrong people gain control of creative direction. And that's what should make every wrestling fan angry, not the individual storyline decisions, but the instability, the uncertainty, the feeling that no matter how invested we get, no matter how much we care about these characters and their journeys, it could all be meaningless tomorrow because some executive who's never taken a bump in their life decided spreadsheets are more important than storytelling. The wrestling business is built on suspension of disbelief. We know it's predetermined, but we choose to believe in the characters, the stories, the moments. That contract between performer and audience requires trust. WWE has broken that trust repeatedly over the years, and every time they do, it becomes harder for fans to fully invest in what's happening on screen. These three storylines, Triple H's uncertain future, Theory and Rollins' alliance, Drew potentially dethroning Cody, they represent a moment where WWE could either rebuild that trust or shatter it completely. The decisions made in the next few months will reverberate through WWE for years to come. They'll determine whether WWE enters the Netflix era as a creative powerhouse ready to compete with the best content in the world, or as the same old company making the same old mistakes. The call to action, 32:00 end. So where does this leave us? Three massive stories, all interconnected, all potentially era-defining, all hanging in the balance. Triple H's creative influence being threatened just when WWE is hitting its stride creatively. Austin Theory being given another chance at stardom through Seth Rollins' mentorship. Drew McIntyre potentially ending Cody Rhodes' feel-good championship reign to create chaos and unpredictability. Every single one of these stories has the potential to be amazing or disastrous depending on execution. And that's what makes this moment so critical in WWE history. We're at a tipping point. The company could emerge from this stronger, more compelling, and more creatively vibrant than ever. Or they could fall back into the patterns that made them stale and predictable for so many years. The question isn't whether these things will happen. Rumors and speculation swirl constantly in wrestling. The question is, if they do happen, will WWE have the courage to follow through? Will they trust their audience to accept complex, long-term storytelling? Will they resist the urge to panic and change course at the first sign of criticism? Will they remember that the greatest moments in wrestling history came from taking risks, not playing it safe? Here's what I know: the wrestling community is watching closely. Every decision WWE makes right now is being scrutinized by fans who desperately want wrestling to be great again, not just good. We've seen glimpses of greatness under Triple H's creative direction. We've seen what's possible when talented wrestlers are given proper storylines and character development. We've tasted what WWE could be, and now we're terrified of going back to what it was. Final engagement push. Before you go, I need to know where you stand on all of this. Drop your comments on these questions. Should Triple H remain in creative control, or is it time for new voices? Will Austin Theory finally reach his potential with Seth Rollins' guidance? Should Drew McIntyre dethrone Cody Rhodes, or would that be a catastrophic mistake? What's the one thing WWE absolutely cannot screw up right now? And here's the big one: what storyline or decision are you most angry about right now in WWE? Because anger, passion, investment, that's what makes wrestling matter. That's what creates the energy that makes our community special. If this video got you fired up, if it made you think, if it made you want to debate and discuss and argue about wrestling, that's exactly what I wanted. Hit that like button if you're as invested in WWE's future as I am. Subscribe to Wrestling Zone 1 if you want more deep dives into the stories that matter. Share this video with every wrestling fan you know, because these conversations need to happen. The comment section is yours now. Go off, debate, agree, disagree, tell me I'm completely wrong about everything. Tell me I'm a genius. I don't care which, I just want to see that passion, that investment, that energy that makes professional wrestling the greatest form of entertainment ever created. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. We love wrestling. We love the stories. We love the characters. We love the moments that make us jump out of our seats or storm to social media to vent our frustrations. We love this business, and we want to see it succeed. We want to see it reach the heights we know it's capable of reaching. Triple H's future, Austin Theory's redemption, Drew McIntyre's coronation. These aren't just wrestling stories, they are our stories because we're invested, we care, and we're not going anywhere. WWE can make the right decisions or the wrong ones, but we'll be here either way, watching, analyzing, debating, and yes, complaining when they screw it up. That's the deal we've made as wrestling fans. We give our time, our